we talked about this on a previous case only a couple of months ago, Chris. Somebody not facing the music. To many people, that is a pivotal moment of our justice system. It's the almost the iconic scene of a courtroom. And you've been in many of them. You do it as a profession. I've been in quite a few from a journalistic perspective, I should add, apart from that suspicious parking ticket a few years ago. But nonetheless, we're all aware that that scene of a judge sentencing a fellow human being, the jury are there, they've sat through the entire process, and then comes the moment where you face the music, as it were. But that is all lost, of course, if you don't show up. And you, as I remember, I don't want to misquote you here, Chris, you're quite relaxed about somebody not showing up. And we can't seem to hear Chris, actually. We will try. I apologise, Chris. We can't. Oh, we have got you back now, Chris. Is that right?
I muted myself while you were talking about something else, and I'm so sorry. I'm sure it was interesting. But the point I was about to make was that, of course, the jury are often not there for the sentence because often the sentence takes place after the trial. It may well be the jury were there in this case, I don't know, but often, and in a majority of cases, they're not. So that doesn't apply. In terms of the idea that the defendant is required to be physically present, I presume, so that people can stare at her whilst the sentence is passed, or I don't really understand what the attraction is of staring at someone in that particular...
It's not about staring at someone, it's about justice, right? It's the moment of justice.
But the justice
you
is the
face your
sentence.
future in front of a judge, in the courtroom, the austerity of a courtroom, the panelled wood, the seriousness of the proceedings, the atmosphere, the weight of the law, our system, everything in place. The least a defendant should be expected to do would be to show up, surely.
Well, when they're going to get a whole life sentence and they know it, I mean, what possible purpose does it serve that individual or justice? If she's locked away forever, she'll never be released. What more do people want?
I think people want to know
stones at her as well or something. I mean, at what point does it end?
But is there not a... You've had a 10-month trial, and everything that has been discussed, we've been reflecting in this last half an hour, Chris. The pivotal moment is... At that point, you face the music. I mean, the fact that it may well be an irrelevance to her, well, who cares if it's an irrelevance to Lucy Letby? This is about showing up in a courtroom. You are the accused. Right. You've been found guilty of mass murder of babies. Show your face, woman.
Yeah, but that's a different issue. You're making criticism of her choice not to attend, and that's a legitimate criticism and a legitimate comment to make. But I'm wondering how you would see it play out if someone was required by law to be in the dock. Does that mean they'll be physically manhandled in there? Will they be shackled?
I get it. I mean, but there are many people saying yes. There are many people who do argue that. Yes, if you have to be dragged in and shackled.
Is that what the majesty of justice is supposed to look like? Someone being tied to a chair in a courtroom and struggling and fighting and shouting at the judge? I mean, because that's where that would end up. And I'm afraid I don't see that as being a very...
Well, I agree. You could have... Of course you could have chaos. What you try to do is minimise and guard against it. But if you're handcuffed and gagged, then you can't do very much, can you?
I know, but what kind of a society is that where we're handcuffing and gagging someone just to force them to listen to a sentence being passed on them, which they're going to have to serve whether they listen to it or not? I think one of the problems here is that this whole idea, there's a big difference between something being just, and many people, if not most, will agree that the sentence that's been passed is just, and something being a form of victimization, where you're just looking to humiliate someone in front of other people as part of the process. I don't see how that helps anyone.
That may well be a defence barrister's line on this. For everybody else, Chris, we just look at it as justice. It's not about we want to start throwing rotten fruit. This is about justice being seen to be done, and that final pivotal moment, more than a little symbolic, of the defendant standing in a courtroom, the epicentre of justice, in front of the judge, eye to eye, hearing their fate, to many people is crucial.
Yeah, you say that, but many people are tried in their absence because they disappear and they leave the country and they can't be found. So their whole trial takes place without the defendant even being present. And the alternative will be not to try them and they wouldn't be convicted. So, really, I think it's just ludicrous, this idea. I think it demeans a process that should be calm, should be quiet, should be considered and should be judicial. If you are going to start dragging people physically into court in front of a judge, they have the option to come. If they choose not to come, they're going to get the sentence anyway, and they're going to have no say in it, and they're going to have no ability to participate. The punishment is the sentence, not the sentencing process itself.
You don't sense that there is the chronology, if you like, the optics, the symbolism, the underpinning of what our justice system is. You don't think any of that is crucial to that final moment? You don't see it dilutes it somewhat? If
I absolutely don't think it. It makes no difference whatsoever at all, and I can tell you that having clients who've been convicted in their absence, having been sentenced in their absence, whether they've chosen to be present or absent rather because they're in prison and they won't come out of their cell, or because they've disappeared, as sometimes happens if they were on bail at some stage. I've seen all of it, and I can tell you now, nothing that you've just described makes any difference. In the end, what matters is due process is followed. If there are guilty verdicts, they're returned in accordance with the law, and the judge passes a lawful sentence. It doesn't matter whether the defendant is there or not there. It makes no difference. And I think it would make an absolute fiasco, and it would become a sideshow if you started physically dragging defendants into court against their will. That's not the calm, measured system of justice that we expect in a civilized country. That's the sort of way you behave in an uncivilized system. Let's not forget that no one would see this happen because the defendant is not televised. No, the only people would see this process will be those who were in the actual courtroom.
So the family of victims. You say only people, the family of victims.
Well, I'll tell you this, Ian. If I ever have the terrible tragedy that someone close to me is murdered, I hope that it's not me. I'm not baying for blood and wanting people to be dragged into court and forced to sit and listen to the sentence. I hope I sit there.
You don't think there's something in the? I mean, putting aside for 1 second, the legal arguments I think one could construct, as I've tried to do here, in terms of why somebody would be there, justice, etc., etc. But the idea of the victims seeing the perpetrator taken down, their last moment of freedom, so to speak, from a courtroom, having been found guilty and now sentenced. You don't think that plays any part in this? You don't think it's possible to have that belief without it being baying for blood?
No, I think it's possible to have that belief. I don't think I would never make a criticism of anybody who has an entirely emotional and very deep-seated emotional reaction to the criminal process where they've lost a loved one. And how people behave and feel in that situation is very individual and very personal. I'm not criticising anyone, whatever their own personal feelings. I'm just saying that it's nothing to do with the law. It's to do with the human nature perspective, which is, I think, when things are done in a calm, quiet and civilized way, rather than with physical force being used right in front of the court, in front of everyone, to force someone into a position they don't want to be in. I think that's unseemly, and I don't think it helps society and justice to do it to operate in a way that does credit to our country. I would much rather see the process as it played out, as we saw today, with a judge calmly passing sentence and the defendant knowing that sentence and knowing that she'll never be released. That, for me, should be enough.
Chris, stay with us. Chris Daw KC, barrister and lawyer, with us on the programme. We'll talk